Hiya, I'm Jenny Jackson. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to show you some English paper piecing for a new pattern that I'm releasing in January. I've been a sewing quarter designer and demonstrator for the past year, and now I'm focusing on designing my own patterns. I'm going to be working for magazines, so you'll find some of my patterns in there. Hopefully teaching some workshops in the new year locally down in the Sussex area, so keep an eye out on all my social media because I'll be constantly posting what I'm up to. So yeah, today this is my new pattern that's going to be released probably mid-January. I just need to finish some final bits off. It's all English paper pieced and it's made out of 2 blocks. This is one block and this is another block, and it's just repeated constantly, and you can just add as many as you like. This is just a wall hanging size, but the more blocks you make, the bigger you can go. I'm just going to show you, to start with, the way that this pattern can be so much fun. So it's made out of 2 blocks, like I just said, but depending on which way you rotate the blocks or how you place them, the pattern can look completely different. So I've printed out some examples, and these will be in my pattern when I release it. So this one is just the same block, block number 1 going across the top, and block number 2. Then we've got block 1 and block 2. So it's just in line. So you get more of a striped effect with this. It's all very geo. Right, this is another one. Just going to hold that upside down. There we go. This is more vertical lines. It's got got one going horizontal, one block, and then we've got the next block going vertically down. So again, that looks completely different from this one. Got, I think, similar to the one that I've got hanging behind me, but I've just got the placement slightly different on this one. So there is so many options you can do, and again, if you use different fabrics, it's going to look totally different. This is another one with the vertical lines and the horizontal, but I've got the opposite blocks doing that. So within my pattern, here's another couple. So there's so many options that you can do with this pattern. In my in the pattern, when I release it, I'm going to have colouring pages as well. So I'll have a few different layouts in the pattern, but there won't be any colour on them. It'll be for you to like place and choose where you want to put your fabrics, because I find that the best way to work. If you've seen my patterns before, I always have colouring pages in them because people like to use up their like just their fabric stash, and English paper piecing is great for using your scraps up. So if you colour on the pages, you can just see where you want your placements before you start cutting your fabrics. So today I'm just going to show you from the beginning, because everybody knows I love English paper piecing. That's what I started doing. I had a go at block quilting with my auntie quite a few years ago now, and then I joined Instagram and I saw loads of different English paper piecing, and I started off with hexes, but I just love fitting shapes together. So before I knew it, I was just designing my own patterns, all English paper pieced. Although now I've started designing other things, not just English paper piecing, it still has my heart. So I've done a couple of examples of the blocks. This is this time using different fabrics. So I was just using up some of my stash. So here you could have this block this way up, or you could have it that way up. It does not make a difference because it's square. You can just choose how you want it, if you see that. And then that would be block number 1, and then this is block number 2. So using some different shapes, and again, it's square, so you can choose which way up you want it. That's why I'm going to do the different layouts in the pattern. And you can probably come up with your own layouts. And again, colour placement will make it look totally different. So you could do 4 blocks to make a cushion. That's your average size of a cushion, like this. But then you could just twist these ones sideways. See, this quilt pattern, the way I designed it was it's for everyone to play, and you can have your own creativity. Although I've written the pattern, once you've made a block, you can just choose your layout. See, I like it when it's some are horizontal and others are vertical. So yeah, I'm just going to show you now how to English paper piece from the beginning. Some of the shapes, because well, it's not hexagons, so some people get a bit confused. I've just brought a few different shapes with me today. I've got the square and the triangle. Some people get confused when you end up with dog ears, but I'm going to sew a couple together today to show you that there's no need to worry about them. Right, so I've got my templates. Just going to grab a piece of fabric that I brought with me. So you want to try and obviously save your fabric. You don't want to make unnecessary cutting, unless you're fussy cutting. If you're fussy cutting, you might end up cutting from all over the place. But here, I'm just going to start from the edge, although my fabric is a rather strange shape because I've already cut stuff out of it. So I like to use the add a quarter ruler, but you don't have to do that. Any ruler with a quarter-inch marking on it is totally fine. Just I like to use the ridge on this one. So you're going to place your shape on your fabric and just draw 1/4 of an inch round your piece. You could just glue your card down slightly with a tiny bit of like fabric, like sew-line glue that you're going to use for basting in a bit so it doesn't move. Or you can just do it how I've done it here. It doesn't have to be exactly 1/4 of an inch either. If you can do it by eye, so long as there's enough to wrap around the card and be in the seam allowance, it's fine. So for a square, you literally just draw around all 4 sides, and then you can either cut out with a rotary cutter or use a pair of scissors. I've decided to cut out with the scissors today. There we go. So you've just got a square. I've got a bit of a rough edge there, so I'm just going to trim that because my fabric always seems to fray when I travel with it because it's in and out of my bag. Right, so I've got my square and I've got my square paper piece. I tend to use 170 or 180 GSM weight. I like it slightly thicker so I can reuse my templates. It means I don't have to cut as many out, trace, photocopy, you know, because once all sides of a shape have been sewn around, you can take your card out. So you just place your card in the middle, and I always use glue pens, but you can baste using needle and thread. So I go down one side, you don't need to add much at all, and then just fold over like so. Then round the next side of the shape. Just going to take that lid off. Like this, and you just keep going. I love glue basting because it is so much quicker and I'm always up against the time. And it gives really nice crisp edges around your shapes. Right, so like I said, you don't need much glue at all. I glue onto the fabric. A lot of people glue onto the card, but I just find it works for me and it's easy to remove afterwards. So you've got the square there. I've already basted one square. So in this pattern, I've brought block 1 with me to show you. It would just be, you make it in 4 strips. So I'm just going to remember which line it's going to be next. Yep. Then you would have this one here and this one here. So you've got, just checking I've got them going the right way. Yeah. So each block is made out of 4 lines. So you would do each line and then sew those together. So the first one is just really simple, 4 squares against each other. So I'm just going to show you how to sew your shapes together. You need to take your shape, work out which sides you need to sew down. So it's going to be that one. So it'll be right sides together. And I use a little quilter's clip to hold the end that I'm not, because I'm going to start from this end. it just helps. If you've got problems with your hands and you find it hard to grip or your hands ache a lot, using one of these little quilter's clips just takes that pressure off, and it's great when your shapes get bigger as well. So I've done a little knot in my cotton, and I'm just going to go up from the very corner, not going through the card, just catching a few fibres from your material. And you are just going to whip stitch all the way along, like so. I like to do my stitches really close together. I just find it holds it really well, but you can do them larger. And yeah, you can see, you can often see your stitches slightly on the front, not always, but even if they are showing a little bit, it just gives it that nice handmade feel. So just going to go across. I would probably stitch slightly closer together if I wasn't doing it for a demo. It's just obviously quicker to do them slightly further apart. So it's just your normal whip stitch, and you go all the way across to the end. So while I'm doing this, I might as well talk. I am releasing my patterns onto my Etsy shop, which you can get through via my website or just through the Etsy website. It's called #SewShop, spell out hashtag, not using the actual hashtag. In my patterns, there's always the instructions, step-by-step diagrams on how to sew your shapes together. There is usually a colouring page and a layout page as well for something like this, where you can choose how you want to do the layout. I will also put in the templates for it. However, I also sell on there my templates, my little cut-out templates. I will sell those in blocks. So you could buy like block 1 and block 2 and then reuse them, or buy a good few of them, so then you can make a few before you start reusing your shapes. They'll be sold separately to the pattern, so if you do just want to get the pattern and print your own templates out, you have that option. But I know a lot of people would rather be able to buy the templates so they don't have to do that, so I make your life easier. Right, just coming up to the end now of the shapes. When you get to the opposite end that you started on, you're just going to go through, catch those few little threads from the fabric, and I wrap my cotton round a couple of times and just pull it through to close. I usually just do a little stitch back. It's just so my little bit of cotton when I cut it off isn't hanging off the end. So just going to snip that. So there you go. That would be the first squares added, and you would just have to add a couple more. I wanted to show you, I'm going to use a different fabric now, how to cut, baste and sew the triangle shapes together, because this is where you get dog ears, and some people think, oh, do I cut them off? You can trim them at the end slightly, but you do not want to trim close to the point, or you'll end up with a little gap, so you wouldn't want to. So for example, if you wanted slightly less bulk, you could just cut off a little bit like that. So you're not cutting much off, but it will reduce the bulk a little bit. But I would never cut any closer than that to the edge. Cool, so I've got some of my triangle templates. So I'm just going to place it on the fabric like I did before with the square. And just trace around 1/4 of an inch all around. So with your triangles, if you've not got a fabric that is, how do you say it, the pattern's going one way, you can save fabric by then turning your triangle over and then drawing like so. This is going to get you the most out of your fabric. And I would just keep going like this until I had as many as I needed. You see there? Instead of just doing one here, then another one here, and then if you did put that there, you would probably end up with a bigger seam allowance. So if you do it like that first, I do tend to draw around all my shapes first. Maybe only for a block or a couple of blocks, probably not the whole quilt, because I like to break up how I do it. I like to maybe do a cutting session of 3 or 4 blocks, then I'll base those 3 or 4 blocks and sew, and then I'll go back and do more after. Sorry, I do like to break every technique down. Right, so I'm just going to cut out one of the triangles that I've drawn. Again, if you're drawing loads out, the rotary cutter would be quicker to cut it out because you will have straight lines. You can do all the way across, then you can just slice the other bits up. But as I'm just cutting little pieces out, I thought I would use my scissors. Right, so got my triangle. So to base the triangles, you place it down like you would normally, and then baste one side first. I always go slightly across the next line of the shape, just so then my fabric sticks to the fabric. So we're just going to go across like this. Turn my shape. So I love the way glue basting gives really, really sharp edges, especially when you're doing shapes with a lot of sides, or like I said before, the bigger the shape, and also circular shapes. Anything with a curve, I always glue baste. I haven't even attempted to thread baste a shape with a curve. Right, so as you can see there, we've got 3 dog ears, but they're not going to show once you've sewn them together. So you really don't need to worry. So for this pattern, you obviously want to turn one of them so it fits nicely there. Then it's right sides together again, and I'm going to use my clip. Less stress on my hands, because I do so much hand sewing. I have just found little ways which stops my hand from aching, and the clips is the best thing I've found so far. Right, so you're just going to knot your cotton, and you're just going to start on the point there. So forget about the dog ears. You can see the point of where your shape is. So you're just going to catch your threads like you did when you were sewing before, and just go all the way along. I'll try and do this quickly. But as you can see, when I open this shape out, the dog ears will have just folded behind, and you're going to add more triangles. I'm doing much larger whip stitch than I would usually do. Like I said, I recommend doing smaller, so then it's just really secure, especially if you're going to be washing your quilts a lot. This quilt has the option to be one of those quilts that you wash a lot, because you can just keep adding to it. It's quite a nice long-term project. That's the nice thing about English paper piecing, is it's one of those projects that you can just pick up and put down whenever you want. And you can take it to travelling. I personally always have a little EPP kit in my handbag. Whether I get to the school run early and I'm sat in the car for ages, I'll just get a bit of sewing done, or sofa sewing. I always tell everyone that I can't sit and watch TV without sewing. Never relaxing. Well, actually, I say that. This is relaxing. I absolutely love hand sewing. So this could, it's also one of those designs that, depending on the fabric, it's suitable for anyone. You can make some really cute baby quilts out of this, with some really lovely, cute little fabric. You could make them boys, girls, anything really. I think it's quite a nice one for like an older person. So, sorry, like a not an older person, an older child, maybe a late teen, because I know a lot of teens love like geometric shapes. So it's one of those that they would be quite attracted to. So I've gone all the way across the end. I am going to just wrap it around like I did before to finish the line. And then take a stitch back. If you're doing the whole row and you had another triangle prepped, you could just, in fact I'll do that, you can just carry on. You don't actually have to tie your thread off. I'll just prep a triangle quickly so then you can see it again, it won't take long. Where are we? Said always add your 1/4 of an inch around your shapes. In my patterns, the templates will just be for the exact shape size, not including any of the, not including the seam allowance. So always remember, add it around the edge. Here we go. So I've cut another triangle out quickly, and I will base that super quick. And then I can just show you how you can just keep adding. The shapes on the side of the triangles, they're just the half the triangle. I will have the shapes for that in my pattern as well. You won't have to cut any of your shapes in half. I like to make sure everything that you need is there. Fold this over. Oh God, I don't think I added enough glue there. There we go. So, like I said before, I'd finished sewing here. I haven't actually cut my thread off yet. Instead of having to cut it off each time, as you can see here, I'm going to add another triangle. So you just have to make sure that you've got the triangle the right way up. In fact, I'm glad I did this because now you can see the dog ears look like they're going to get in the way, but they're not. So if you just clip it in place so it doesn't move while you're sewing, I just fold the dog ears back slightly, just like that, and then you can see, let's find where my thread is, you can see where the point of your shapes are. So you're just going to pick those up. You do not need to, don't need to sew through the dog ears at all. So just fold them back. They'll ping back once you let go. I'm just going to go back along here. Add this shape. Going. Takes a while hand sewing, doesn't it? So yeah, if you're ever wondering what I'm up to, I'm constantly updating my Instagram page and my Facebook page. Those ones get updated almost daily with whatever I'm up to. And I do love a good giveaway as well when I'm releasing a pattern, so always look out for those. Especially on Instagram, I love to do giveaways on Instagram. Often it's one of the share and like and tag a friend, and then I'll pick a number at random. And you never know, you can end up winning a pattern and a couple of blocks. There we go. So Again, when I got to here, I just automatically folded the dog ears back, catch through. Pull it. Yeah, so you could just carry on adding another triangle until you've got all the triangles you need. There we go. So this would be the start of this block here. And like I said, that's what I was talking about. That's a half of the just that shape cut in half, just to give it a nice straight edge. So those templates will also be in the pattern. Right. So to put a block together, it is, do not remove your paper pieces yet, because you still haven't sewn around all the edges of the shapes. So what you're going to do is you're just going to fold the first line, the second line on top of the first line, place it, not fold it, right sides together. And here you're just going to line that up. This is also when the quilter's clips come in handy, because that's quite a big piece to hold now. So you're just going to sew all along that side. So starting at one edge like we did before, just going to clip. There we go, catch a few bits. Make sure you don't go through the card, because if you go through the card, it's going to make it really, really hard to take it out afterwards. Oh. There we go. So you would just carry on this stitching all the way through the line. Best kind of stitching, sit down with a cup of tea and do this. It's so relaxing. So this block is made up as a square and two rectangles, well, loads of rectangles, but two rectangles together are the same size as the square. So what you can do is when you're sewing along, you can line up, I'm not sure how clear you're going to see this edge, and then there's two rectangles, and then you can see almost the seam there, so you can make sure that's lined up. And then again here. It will all fit together because all the shapes are the correct size. And then just carry on going. And this is repeated for all the rows. You're just going to sew them together in rows, and then you've got your completed block. When I was designing this, I tried to use as many shapes as I could. There we go. Just keep going along. Going to get these two sewn together so then I can show you. I'll open it out. There we go. I'll just go to this corner. That's two rectangles sewn to a square, and just go slightly beyond it. So when I fold it out, you can see what I mean. There we go. So just started sewing these two together. As you can see, it's all lined up. And then once these two are sewn all the way across, you would then do the exact same thing, right sides together. You've got your dog ears here. So what you would do is, in fact, I'll just clip that off. I'll just show you how to fold them back, because I know I've had a lot of people comment before that they're worried that they'll end up poking through the pattern, and they really don't. So again, these two rectangles are the same width as one of the triangle bases. So you can just line it up like that. If you would rather have it and then just pin it there, clip it there, because the other bit can flap, you can just carry on lining it up as you go along. You're just going to fold back the dog ears here on the corner. Find your point in your fabric. You've got that little point from the half triangle. So you're going to start with that by just going through the edge there. And then the next stitch you're going to get, you're going to catch the base of the other triangle. I've folded the dog ears back. And going to keep going. It's all about folding them back. You don't really, I mean, there's nothing wrong if you sew through the dog ears at all, but I just think it's easier to handle if you don't. Just keep going across here. Just want to get to the next dog ear to show you. I've had a lot of people come to me recently saying that they've tried English paper piecing now and they love it. So I also love to receive pictures of what people are making, especially if it's a technique that they've learned from me. Feel free to post those on my Facebook page. That would be great. My Facebook page is it's just my name, Jenny Jackson, and in the picture I am wearing this quilted top that I'm wearing now. It's my favourite one. I do have a personal one which is a different picture, so if you look out for the one, I'm going to keep it like this for a while, look out for the one where I'm wearing this jumper, and that is my sewing page. So yeah, if you post pictures, I know I've taught quite a lot of people how to English paper piece and foundation paper piece. So I just love seeing people create and learn new techniques. Again, I did say I'll hopefully be starting to teach some classes. So if you're ever down south, or if you're not down south, it's a fantastic reason to come down south. Come and have a foundation paper piece or an English paper piecing lesson. All my updates, I will promise to keep everything updated. Try not to forget. Right, just coming up to the end of this shape here. And you're just gonna see that's the edge of that shape, to the edge of the rectangle. And then you're going to clip the next shape here. This is just the easiest way of doing it. And if you just fold back that dog ear there, you're going to go straight through the next triangle, which will start with the third rectangle. There we go. Just done a couple more stitches and I'll open it out so you can see. Just cut that off so it's out of the way. There you go. So that one's now sewn on, and you would just carry on all the way. And then the same with that bottom one, and you have a block. These blocks actually come together really quickly, really quick and easy to sew. I think it actually takes longer to probably cut the fabrics out and base them, or choose where you want your fabrics. So this is one of the blocks completed, the one that I was just showing you, and this is block B. So we have some of the same shapes in here. We've got the rectangles, but I've just turned them on the side. We've got this shape here, can't remember its name, but just go in the opposite way. And then I decided to do some really cute little squares. They are quite small, but they're really easy. Still do your 1/4 inch seam allowance, you can do slightly smaller, and you can just sew, and it's even quicker if you were to sew along here and then add one and then cut your thread off, and then you can start there, sew and add this one all the way, and then you can add another one. So you'll find your own way of doing it. There is no rules, just sew them all together. And we've got a different triangle up here. Once you've completed blocks, what you can do is all the shapes that have got all their sides sewn around. So we're not talking about these edge ones, because those edge ones will need to be sewn to something else. So all of these ones you can remove your papers from, and it will just make it a lot easier to handle. So as you can see, these are all my cards, papers in the back. And when you glue base, it really does come off easy. So I just thought I'd show you. You just peel it back. It's not going to rip the card, and it's not going to ruin the fabric at all. You're just going to poke them out like that. It's just that easy. So I always do this, and then these shapes, if you use the card that I use, so if you buy my pre-made shapes, they'll be made from this card or very similar, and I think this particular shape here I've probably used at least 3, 4, 5 times, and I can still use it again. It's absolutely fine. So that's the beauty. If you do remove your shapes once you've sewn around all the edges, you fold them less, they end up getting not manipulated as much, and they don't get creases in them. So you can just keep using them. Then you can make more than one quilt. So a lot of my quilt designs I do tend to do in blocks like this for English paper piecing. So there's not a limit to the size that you want, that you can do. It is just a case of working out what size you want, and you just keep adding blocks until you get to that size. There we go. I've just taken these papers out here. As you can see, they've all come out. So I take out them all once I've finished the quilt, and I will have ended up taking out the majority of all these papers. I will just have the edge ones left in. What I tend to do before I take those out is just press it slightly, no steam, just press around the edge before you take them out. You can still use the card again after. It just gives you that, like, the fold's going to stay better for when you're basting your quilt. You can obviously, when you're trimming your quilt down after you've quilted it, you can see the edge anyway, but I just like to press all around the edge of the quilt before I remove those papers. There we go. As you can see, I've ended up getting carried away with myself, taking loads of the papers out. That's because they just come out so easily. And if you didn't have nails and you were slightly struggling to get them out, you can just run a needle just along there, and it will help lift it out. And then you could just go along your next line, just run the needle along, because some people do find it, or if you've got a fabric that frays a lot, if you pull it, you don't want to keep making it fray more. So if you do this technique of just running the needle between the card and the fabric, there's less chance of it fraying, because you're not going to be picking the fabric at all. There you go. And this is just the needle that I sewed with before. There we go. So that's how easy it is to take those cards out. I've been asked that a few times. So when you've done that to your blocks, they're a bit lighter. So this one feels a lot lighter than that, and I haven't even taken them all out. So when you come to sewing your blocks together, you decide which way you want your blocks. Well, you will have decided that before you started making it, because you would have coloured it in, chosen your layout. It's as simple as putting the blocks together, right sides together, like always, and you're just going to sew along the lines that you want attached to each other. Just like I did when I was attaching these lines together. It's the same, but this time it's all the blocks together. I think this one's just 4 blocks along and 5 blocks down. That's a nice little lap quilt or baby quilt size. So just gonna, so I folded that dog ear back, and you're just gonna, it's all the same technique. This whole quilt is the same technique. It's just sewing through the whip stitch with the fabrics right side together, whip stitching along. There you go. So this is just how you're going to get your blocks together. Make sure you've got them in the right layout before you start sewing them together. There we go. Just keep going. So like I said, 4 blocks make a cushion. You could even use these as blocks to go on bags, like a feature, and then just add a border around, and that can be the front of your bag, or even you could use it for the flap of a bag if you're doing one that comes over. I like to make English paper piece tote bags as well. There we go. So you just keep going. When you get to the next shape on this side, this is the 2 little squares. You just keep going through, and you're not going to end up with any holes at all. Just keep it going. My favourite needles to use for these, I use Milliner's size 11 needles. They're not too short. I like to have the length of the needle, and they do have a tiny eye. But the reason why I like this is so it doesn't leave any holes in the fabrics that you're going through, and they are really, really sharp. I found them a while ago and I've stuck to them, I've never changed. There we go. Also, when you're English paper piecing, you might want to use a thread conditioner, Thread Magic, or there's so many out there, beeswax ones. This is because you're, sorry, depending on which cotton you're using, because you're going constantly through the fabrics, sometimes some cottons can fray a little bit, but the thread conditioner will stop that happening. And also, if you get a knot, which you can still do even if you've put the conditioner through, your thread through the conditioner, they tend to pull out really easily. So the way I condition my thread is I'll cut the length that I want, not too long because there's more chances of knotting if you cut a long one. I just open my thread conditioner and I will just run it straight through like that. And that's it. And it does make it so much easier to get those knots out if you do get them, because it's got that little waxy feel and you can just pull it out. I feel like it also makes it a bit stronger as well, because some threads snap really easily when you're pulling it. There we go. So let me just pop my needle there so I can't see. So as you can see, I've just sewn slightly along there, and that would join these 2 blocks together. So then I always sew them in lines. So for this one, it would have been 4. I would have sewn 4 together. Then I would have sewn the next 4 together, and so on until I had 5 rows. And then I would sew those rows on top. Again, whatever you can handle, however you like to do it. You just need to sew blocks onto blocks. Once I'd finished, I just quilted it following, I just did squares, quilted squares. I stitched between the ditch on some of the shapes, and others I went through the shapes. So it is just squared quilting with a binding around the edge. I have been doing some YouTube videos and stuff. Again, my YouTube channel is just my name. You can find links through that from my Facebook and my website. If you've got any suggestions of things you would like to see, I'd love to hear from you. I have just recently done a binding one. I love doing techniques that maybe showing people different ways to do new techniques. So I know my binding technique was different to how people had seen before, because I like really tight binding. But if there's anything, any quilting technique that you would like to see, it can even be just the best way to cut out certain things. Let me know and I'm more than happy to give it a go to show you. So yeah, this quilt pattern is going to be released mid-January. So keep an eye out for updates, maybe a giveaway and stuff. And I just wanted to show you another quilt that I have designed. This one's quite Christmassy actually. It's called Winter Wreath. I'm just going to pop it on top of the table. Again, this is English paper piece, like most of my stuff. So this one is made out of, just trying to remember because it's been a while. It's made out of 2 different blocks. So I'm just trying to see it upside down now. Got it. So this, just see the best way to show you. So this is one block here, going around here. And then the other block would be this and 4 little triangles. And then they all just slot together. So each one of these, so there's one, you can see the green outline, and you've got another green one here, and in between is a joining block. There. So again, this is English paper piece. I've got the pattern for it on my Etsy shop, and with that one, you only have the option to buy the pre-cut templates. I don't have the templates in the pattern for you to print your own. This is a great one for Christmas. I mean, it's English paper piecing, so it does take a while. You could start this and have it done for next Christmas. So especially if you just want to add a little bit at a time. There's loads of options for this. I mean, I actually think if you, even though it's called Winter Wreath, if you use pinks, purples, any colour, it actually wouldn't look wreathy necessarily. You could just, yeah, do anything with it. That's the fun thing about English paper piecing. Depending on where you place your fabrics and what fabrics you use, you can really make it look like something similar. So like this one, because I've used the red outline, the blue and the green outline, it's kind of made it look like a wreath. But if you, if you did like florals and stuff, it would look completely different. You could almost make this look like a flower, like a geometric flower, not your standard flower, but you could make it look that way. So yeah, that's another one of my patterns that's in my Etsy shop. I've got a few other ones and I'm hoping to add more and more this coming year. So yeah, just want to say thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've learned a little bit more about English paper piecing, and yeah, please just follow my Instagrams and Facebooks and just keep up to date with what I'm doing next. Loads of exciting things to come this next year.